Welcome back to Fireside Craps. I'm your host, John Kokas from the YouTube channel Pro Craps. It's November 15th, 2021. This is episode 2. It's going to be a fun episode. I got a lot of really cool things planned for us to talk about here. But before we do that, I've got a really big announcement coming right up. All right, what I want you to do is save the date. I want you to save November 27th and 28th. That's Thanksgiving weekend. That's going to be after your turkey coma and after your shopping spree on Black Friday. I want you to give me 24 hours, the 26th and 27th. What I'm going to do is do a 24-hour straight broadcast, a live stream for 24 straight hours, telethon style. I want to mimic what Jerry Lewis did when we were all kids raising money for muscular dystrophy. We're going to raise money for the National Council on Problem Gambling. We're going to try and raise enough funds to lift up a family, pay their entire set of bills for the month of December, give them room to breathe a little bit, and approach the new year clean, clear, and hopefully on the right path. And the NCPG does a really good job of awareness, education. They have hotlines. Just a great organization. You've seen their disclaimers on a lot of channels, but I want to put some wood behind that arrow here. And like I said, do a 24-hour craps-based telethon. Now, I can't do it alone. So I've enlisted the help of a lot of YouTubers that I'm sure you've probably heard of. Jeremy at Color Up, David and the folks at Casino Quest, Jacob from Wager Me This, Dave from Same Bet, Ed from Roll to Win, Jeff at Mid-Atlantic Craps, Brian Hawaii Crap Shooters, and about 15 others are going to join us sporadically throughout that 24 hours with interviews and live practice and strategy discussions, and you name it, we're going to do it. We're going to spend 24 straight hours on this game trying to raise money and awareness for problem gambling. So it's kind of a crazy idea. I've got 2 weeks to put it together. It's going to be a little bit insane around here for sure. We'll give you updates on our morning shows, of course, but stick with us. Save the date, November 27th and 28th. Again, Thanksgiving weekend. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Hopefully we can raise enough money for this great cause and lift the family up. So with that said, let's have a quick word from our sponsors, without whom we couldn't have a podcast. After the break, we'll jump right into story time. Our story this week is going to come to us courtesy of a listener, actually. So here we are, second episode in. I'm already not doing my own stories, but this one's actually really good. Rick wrote to me this email in response to our last podcast episode, and he said, "We met some friends in Vegas last weekend, and I was able to play at Ellis Island for the first time. $5 table with very friendly and appreciative crew. I did well with the back wall lay and the horseman, which is good for me to hear. There was a couple of young beginners playing, and they asked me questions trying to learn what I was doing. I was short and vague with my answers because I was trying to stay focused on my next move, since it was a pretty choppy table, and I was converting some of the come number hits to place bets. Afterwards, I realized how much of a douchebag I was by not being an ambassador of the game and giving these guys more of my time. They wanted to learn, and I was more concerned with my play." Well, it's good to know that someone was listening anyway, I guess. But in all seriousness, the point I made last episode was a good one, and it's a challenge to get out there and grow the game. I know that that's not top of mind because you have a lot of things going on, and I know that. And one of the reasons why you'll notice that if you watch my YouTube channel, I'm preaching all the time about practice, practice, practice. Become a machine with your practice, because what I want is, for at least for myself, right? I want my rack management, my next bet. I always know, like, I treat this like baseball, right? So if you've ever played or coached baseball, you'll know that the coaches are always telling the kids, if the ball's hit to you, what are you doing next? If the ball's hit to the shortstop, what are you doing next? If the ball's hit anywhere, everybody's got a job. And I look at the bets on my craps table the same way. Every bet has a job to do based on what comes next. So I'm always looking at the layout of the table and saying, well, what's going to be the next move if a 7 comes, if the number hits, if a different number hits? And I know what's coming. I know what my rack's going to look like. So I don't worry about having to kind of manage that stuff during the play, because I'm such a machine now with the way that I practice. So my encouragement to you is just practice to get to that point, so that in a situation like this where Rick found himself, where you've got people that want to talk and ask you questions, because if you're playing something that looks complex, like the horseman or some other weird come betting strategy where you're converting things to place bets and that sort of thing, they're going to want to know what the hell you're doing. And frankly, I don't want to say it's douchey not to help them out, but maybe it kind of feels that way. At least it felt that way to Rick. What I would say to you is this: it's an opportunity to grow it. It's an opportunity to get somebody who doesn't know the game that well to get to know the game well. And, the more we grow this game, maybe they'll keep the tables. Maybe they'll keep the tables low so we can actually, most of us can play on them. As you know, minimums are rising. We talked about this last episode in our What's Trending segment about the table minimums rising and rising to the point where you and I just can't play them anymore with the normal bankroll. So that's the new trend. And I'll tell you, out of that trend is something else. We may as well just jump into the What's Trending segment now and talk about roll to win tables. And I think roll to win is the next trend that I'm really seeing out there. I have really mixed feelings about the roll to win tables. Now, if you don't know what roll to win is, it's basically a hybrid machine. It's, there's these bubble crap machines that you bet on the computer. So you kind of use your finger to drag and drop the chips wherever you want them. And there's like two big dice in a bubble, and they sort of bounce around and they land on a number, and you can bet without being at a big table, and it's usually pretty low minimums. Well, the roll to win is sort of a hybrid between that and a real craps table. So you still bet on the computer. You can make all the improper bets that you want. That's all fine. But there is a table surface that you can throw real dice on. So it's a real people, real dice. The surface itself is plexiglass with a little coating on top. So it's not quite the same feel as a real craps table. And there's only one dealer. And that one dealer's sole job is to use the stick to grab your dice that you just threw, punch in the numbers that you rolled, and it sets the video screen off, and then they give you the dice and you repeat it again. So what roll to win has done is a couple of things. One is it's made a lower price point. So most roll to win tables are going to be $5. In some states, they're actually as low as $3, but they're essentially at the lowest price table you're going to find. They replaced the $5 tables of the real variety with these roll to win tables. So in effect, they use this as a way to not price you out of craps, which is, I think, good in the long run. However, it's not the same as craps. There is just so much difference to this game. The dealers aren't in, right? They're not on your side. They aren't playing with you. They aren't fun, right? The dealer who's there, again, their job is to grab the dice, punch a computer number, give you the dice. They don't make stick calls. The machine does all that. The machine makes all the noise. And the dealer is really not involved at all. And in fact, there's only one dealer. So normally on a craps table, you've got the box person, you have the two dealers on either side of the table, plus the stick person. This thing replaces all of them with one human. And that human is doing nothing. No math, no chip work, no interaction. It could literally be a dishwasher out there running the computer. So it eliminates essentially 4 jobs. 4 jobs go away with this table, which really sucks. And that kind of pisses me off that they've gone down this road. And you see it with the stadium gaming too, right? A lot of casinos now, another trend is the stadium game where you've got, a blackjack, like kind of set up, a baccarat set up, a little bubble craps machine, and like 50 chairs around it. And you can kind of bet what you want to. Again, you can get 60 people in there betting and 1 or 2 people running the whole thing. So again, more jobs going away, less people for you to tip, right? But again, more jobs going away. The casinos are a service industry, and we like being serviced. That's what humans do, right? We like to serve and be served, and that's all going away with roll to win. So for those reasons, I really hate it. I really, really hate it. And aside from that, the table to me, the ones that I've been at least, really are dead. It's a really dead surface. A dead environment. In other words, nobody's happy. The dealers aren't making calls. Nobody's high-fiving. For whatever reason, it's such a depressed feeling at those tables because you're just kind of at your computer screen in your own little world. There's no camaraderie. So as a way to get, lower bankroll folks in or new players into the game to learn it, which seems to be what roll to win is trying to do, like let's give a lower minimum, let's get more people involved. They're not going to stick with the game if it sucks, if it's boring. And that's what I hate about it. I hate all those things, right? The job's number 1. It's boring. Number 2, there's just no energy. It feels like you're with a bunch of degenerates. Actually, everybody's kind of got they're all down in the dumps the whole time. But, and this is a big but, there's a good piece to it. And the good piece to it is this: it's a small little table. It's about 10 feet long total, and because of all the computers, the interior length of that table is about 8 feet. And every roll to win table in the country is the exact same size. Every roll to win table in the country has the exact same surface. So if you fancy yourself a dice controller or have any sort of controlled shot at all, and I believe that I do to some degree, you can master the table surface. You can practice it. You can master one and master them all. So if you drop in at any roll to win table at any casino, anywhere in the country, and you've practiced a throw that works well on that surface that you can stop the dice, you can get some pretty long rolls. And by pretty long rolls, I mean really long rolls. I've seen more long rolls at those tables because of the way that the dice bounce off the back wall and come back to rest. It's actually a very beatable system. So from a financial standpoint, I don't hate roll to win. I hate what it stands for. I hate the fact that it's sucking jobs. I hate the fact that it's a dead table. I hate the fact that it's not inviting new people to come in and play the game and love the game and kind of grow the game. I hate all that. But I do like making money, and I can make money at those tables. And I think you can too if you practice on them. So what's trending? Roll to win is trending. Stadium gaming in general is trending. Dealerless table games are trending. And frankly, folks, I think that's got to stop. I think, there's a part of me that wants to make the money on that table because I can. There's part of me that wants to sometimes just sit and have a couple of drinks and play the stadium game just to kind of relax and not have the stress of playing a game. But it's going to cost jobs, and it just feels like an arcade. It just feels phony. It's not the same. And we need to start fighting back about this stuff, right? The casinos, as I've said before, they will keep doing the things that you play. They'll keep making games if you keep putting money into them. They'll keep changing the rules as long as people keep playing the games. And we'll talk in a little while here in my Just Say No segment about some of that. We just got to hold them accountable to some degree. And it just takes people to not frequent things that we don't like. The more you frequent it, the more they're going to build it. Like that whole, if they build it, they will. If they build it, we will come. Well, they keep building crap and we keep playing it. So at some point we're going to have to stop that. Roll to win is sort of it's this weird like bridge or crossover system between what we love and what we hate. We got to find a way to temper that a little bit. That said, if you're at a roll to win table, what you have to do is make it not suck, right? You got to make it not suck. You got to get the dealer to make calls. Ask the dealer to make calls. You make the calls if you have to. Get the players around you jacked up and have some fun. Make it not suck. At least you have that, right? If they're going to do what they're going to do and you can't go onto a real table because the minimums are 100 or 50 or whatever they are, and you're stuck at that table, make it not suck. Let's get more people at least to get there and dig it and at least start learning craps. And, maybe we can start driving things down. I don't know that will ever drive table minimums down, but if somebody's at roll to win and you can help them through it and you can make the table fun, maybe you can keep them interested in the game and stop some of the shrinkage of table games in favor of these stadium and hybrid sort of systems. So that's what's trending.
You are a douchebag.
Man, this segment's really kind of bumming me out. When I put the podcast together, I thought, let's do a little section on, who the biggest douchebag at the table is. I thought it'd be kind of fun and funny to relay a story here or there. But, it turns out there's a lot of really douchey things that happen at tables. And it's kind of a bummer that people are just jerks, right? So, last episode I called out the don't bettors, and it's easy to do that because I'm one of them. And I highlighted just the fact that, a lot of don't bettors are, going to over celebrate the 7 or whatever. But really, when they're pointing it out that they just knock somebody down, right? That's kind of BS, right? You just don't do that. And I've seen don't bettors, throwing their dice at people's chips or aiming for their hands or aiming for the rack or whatever they're doing to try and force a 7. And I get it. You want to win, but acting out like that is just kind of a douchebag move. And it turns out that the right side bettors do the same thing. And, I got a ton of comments and a ton of just emails and just, notes on the website about this kind of stuff. And here's one from a listener named Arlene. And she says, I had a supposed dice controller try to roll my no 4. And when he did it, he jumped up and down and called me darling. Now, I wrote her back, that's 2 asshole moves in one. I mean, Again, I don't know if he had a bet on the four. If he had a bet on the four and he's trying to roll his four, fine, right? I get you're trying to make money. If he wasn't on the four and he's just trying to knock her no four down because A, he wants to flex and show what a great dice controller he is, that's a dick move. B, try and take somebody's money down, dick move. And C, calling this woman darling, come on, man. It's 2021. We're beyond that now. I mean, let's grow up a little bit and not be douchebags from either side of the table, right? If you're a right side bettor and somebody's on the 7, so what? So what? The 7's coming. You're going to 7 out. I don't care how good of a shooter you are. You're going to 7 out. That person's contented to sit down there and wait it out, right? And frankly, as a don't bettor, I'm happy, right? You want to roll, set your dice, and you can get 20 or 30 shots in a row, fine. The 7's coming. I'll take my 25, 50, $100, whatever I've got on the don't, and I'll be just fine with that. Just do your thing, win your money, and when you're done, I'll take my cut. And that's kind of how you have to look at it. Remember, we're all out here to win, right? And we're not winning from each other. We're not taking, this isn't poker where I'm trying to take your money. We're all trying to take casino money. So, like I said last episode, if anybody wins, you ought to be down for that, right? But this whole notion of people trying to knock each other down at the table, it's freaking stupid. And like I said last time too, I'll repeat this, say something, right? You see somebody being a dickhead, say something about it, jump into that mess and just say, you know what, knock it off, big deal. Let them bet, who cares, right? You are allowed to, restore peace and order to the table. And again, I say this all the time because I've got a real fear that craps is shrinking, right? When you go to the casinos, there's less and less tables, less and less live tables, more and more bubble craps roll to win, more and more stadium. The game is shrinking. There's no need to drive people away from it because you want to be a jerk, right? So again, douchebag behavior from player to player is what I'm calling out. Last episode, this episode, same thing. But I got news for you. There's more of it. I've got like dozens of other examples, things that I've seen at tables, things that listeners have either left me voicemails with or emails or set comments on the YouTube channel. Lots of, I'll say it in air quotes, good examples of people being pretty douchey, but you know it when you see it. And it's one of those things where, I joke about it. It's like porn. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. You know it when you see it and when you hear it and when you experience it. And there's just flat out no reason for it. Folks just for some reason want to flex whenever they get a chance to. And I don't get the why behind that. I mean, I guess I kind of do, but I don't see a need for it. So, if you feel the need to blow somebody up at a table for having a good time, if you feel the need to celebrate when somebody else loses their money, then go the hell home. We don't need you at the table. If you feel the need to get on Facebook or Discord or a comment thread in a YouTube channel and blow somebody up because they don't agree with you or they see it differently than you do, then you got a serious problem. And I think for the rest of us, I've said this before, you've got the license to kind of call it out, right? You can say, really? Seriously? You can sell somebody online. That was uncalled for. Like just a simple response to a douchebag comment or a douchebag note on Facebook. Was that called for? Like, that's all you got to say. Just call them out. Let everybody know that you got their back. I mean, that's part of it too, right? If people know you got their back, right? That's how you stop some of this stuff. So I think, it falls to us to reduce some of the douchebag stuff that we see in the moment that it happens. I think when you don't address it in the moment, it festers, it becomes a thing. And there's no need for it to be a thing. If you're the kind of person that's doing that, just do it at home. You know what I mean? Don't type it. Don't say it. Sit, watch TV, bitch to yourself or to your wife or whatever, and just knock it off. But to bring it to the casino or bring it online, remember, there's somebody on the other end of everything you say. And you got to remember that. I said it in the last episode, the sign of the times, right? COVID, 2021, whatever it is, we have this like fearlessness about us of, not having to censor our thoughts or whatever it is. That's bullshit. You have to live in the world with other people and remember that there's always somebody on the other end of it. And I think that's the spirit of the last couple of episodes with this segment is that, again, I'd like it to be a little more lighthearted. I think there are some douchebaggy things that people do that are almost kind of funny. I'd rather talk about some of that stuff. So if you've got examples of douchey behavior that you think is funny, or lighter, or just, whatever, keep them coming. Keep them in my inbox. Keep them in the voicemail. I'll definitely bring them here where I can. The website, of course, is firesidecraps.com. And if you want to email me, it's john@procraps.net. And just, again, keep them coming because, again, this is as much your show as it is mine. I think it's kind of cool when I can integrate or add in things, some flavor from you. So please keep those thoughts and ideas coming. And let's hope that we can eliminate the douchebag segment altogether someday. Doubtful, but it's a nice dream to have. Let's take a quick timeout here from all the negative stuff and call out some folks that I would call virtual sponsors of the show. They're not actually sponsors or paying anything, but just folks that I want to call out because of what they represent and how they've inspired me to kind of keep doing this. So, and what I'm referring to are guys that just turn on their cameras and go. And I think the guys, and I'll give you some examples, right? Ken knows gambling, right? I love Ken. Ken just flicks on the camera, says what's on his mind, and that's it. There's no script. There's no agenda. It's just Ken being Ken, and he's completely transparent about that. I love that about him. On the craps specific side, though, there are guys like Henry, the silent shooter, George from CY, the dice mechanic, Bird Dog, Mudslide Mac, G-Dub Tex. These are guys that also just flick their cameras on and go. And what they're doing is not producing a show or being a content provider. They're practicing, right? They're going to show you a little bit of a thing they're working on. They're going to film their practice session and they're going to be transparent about it. And the idea behind that is not to build some enormous channel. The idea behind that is to be accountable to themselves. They've set a bar that they're reaching for. And by setting a high bar and saying, hey, I'm going to practice X number of times per week or per day or whatever it is, I'm just going to film it. And that makes them have to do it and do it at a high level and also be unapologetic about the results, whether they're good or they're bad. I think that's fantastic. That's what transparency is all about. That kind of makes me want to do my daily show. I have a daily show as well. I go on every morning with the Coffee and Crap Show on the YouTube channel. And it's the same sort of thing. Turn the camera on. Here I go. Whatever's on my mind, however I want to play, we just do it. And again, just like them, I have this bar that I set that I have to reach. And I say, I'm going to do it. Now I have to do it. I'm going to do it well. I've got to do it well. And they're doing the same thing. And when I see that, that's just like, man, that's what Craps Nation is all about. It's just, we love the game. We're going to practice it. We're going to film it. We're going to talk about it in all manner, shapes, and forms. And I think it's super cool. And like I said, I draw inspiration from these folks every single day. And I encourage you to go check out their channels. I'll provide links to them in the descriptions here so you can go visit them. And there's others like them too. There's just 5 that came to my mind that I do happen to watch all the time. And I encourage you to do it because, again, I'm a huge believer in setting goals that are high and having to reach them and holding yourself accountable to doing what it takes to get there. So more on that later, but that's I wanted to call those guys out today as our virtual sponsors for this episode.
How about no?
What are we saying no to this episode? Well, it's going to be this idea of forced betting. So I don't know what your casinos do by you, but here in Washington, and I know that in other places it's worse. Other places are doing an ante to play craps. You got to actually drop a buck or two in for every single shooter just to kind of keep your spot at the table, which I think that's complete garbage. Locally here, it's getting worse where what I'm seeing, at least right now, one of my local casinos is requiring that you have a pass line bet or a don't pass bet on the shooter preceding you so that you can shoot. It used to be, like you'd expect, a line bet's required to shoot. Now they're requiring a line bet on the person before you. If you don't bet on the person before you, they're going to skip you. You don't even get to put your bet down. It just goes right past you. So they're forcing you to make a decision. And I asked the dealers, what are they doing? And they're like, yeah, we want the contract bet. We want a contract bet out there before you get the dice so that we know that you're actually in the game. And I said to them, you know, I literally just had 160 out there. I was built myself up across. it wasn't that good enough. I mean, I put my own money out and built it up, and like, no, doesn't count. Those are bets you can pull down. We want the contract bet. And so, you, of course, if you think logically about it, you can put a minimum table don't pass bet and pull it back immediately, which it's a way to kind of fight the system, I suppose. But it's bullshit if you think about it. And the problem is you can't just say no and not play. It's craps. We want to play the game. We love the game. My local casinos, both of them, because they still have the COVID restrictions here in Washington. There's no plexiglass, but they limit our tables to 6 or 8 people, depending on the table length. There's always a waiting list. I go to the casino, even on like a Wednesday, and I've got to sign in with the pit and wait for my name to get called. So you don't get to pick your spot, number one. If you're at your spot and they implement this forced contract bet thing, then what's your recourse? If you say no, you give up your spot. You can't play, and now you don't get to play craps that night, and you're out. So I hate to like walk away from the game, which I'll never do. But I also hate to enable the casinos to do this kind of stuff. I said this before. If they change a rule at a casino, it's never in your favor. Nothing ever changes good for the player. They can sell 000 black or 000 roulette as a new way to win. It ain't a new way to win. It's a new way to lose. They can sell 6-5 blackjack as, it's less decks. It's better odds. It's not. It's garbage. And this is the same thing. This is just forcing you to make a decision on every shooter. I'm not loving it. Like I said, right now it's only with the shooter before you, but it's going to grow. It hasn't left, as far as I know, my state, but I fear that's coming to Vegas and Atlantic City and Reno and everywhere else soon. So be on the lookout for this forced contract bet on the shooter before you, and you watch where that goes. So we got to find a way between us to make this stuff go away. I don't know what the answer is, honestly. I'm open to your comments. Drop me an email at john@procraps.net. If you have any thoughts at all on what we do, short of, all wearing t-shirts that say just say no on them, or picketing, or not playing, that's the only thing I can think of. How else do we fix it? I don't know. I just know that it feels like bullshit, and I hate it. I hate the fact that we're losing the games to bean counters. I think Ken said this to me one time. Ken at Ken Knows Gambling. When the mob ran Vegas, it was fine, right? They knew how to take care of people. The odds were fair. The casinos were clean. There was no, what do they call that? Electricity charge or whatever the resort fee crap. There was none of that stuff, right? They gave you a dinner if you bet high enough. Now it's all about percentages and like I said, everything is on a spreadsheet. And as much as I like my math and my computer programming, that's bullshit. You treat people like people, and this forced bet thing is just somebody doing math and changing the game and not in your favor. So if you can do it, find a way to just say no. Find tables that don't have the forced bet on shooters before you, if you can help it. Let's make sure this thing doesn't spread out to Vegas and AC and Biloxi and Reno and wherever else. Let's make this thing fizzle out here locally before it becomes the new normal. Let's close out with a little talk about goal setting, risk management, and risk aversion and hedge betting. So give you a little history of my life here, and I don't want to go into great detail, but basically, my wife and I moved from Jersey to Seattle back in the 90s. We got married. We moved back to New Jersey for a time. And during that time, my career, I was a cook. I was actually a chef back then. This is before I got into software development. Well, I had a tough time finding a job in Jersey at that time. And I ended up doing telemarketing for a while, moved into phone room manager, became a tech support representative for a company that actually supplied us with the hardware that we used to do the telemarketing phone calls, because I got really good at kind of troubleshooting their system. Anyway, they hired me, moved me to Atlanta for about 6 months to a year, I guess about 8 months maybe. And I flew around the country sort of fixing machines and running wires and that kind of thing. And that's how I got into tech initially. Well, there was a period of time there where, I had to learn some coding to kind of get that work done. And I was, of course, like everybody in those days, you're totally self-taught. And we had a period of time where I wasn't at a client's site. I wasn't traveling. And our company needed a website. because, you know, in 1993, 4, you weren't sure the internet was going to be a thing yet. It turned out it was a thing. But my boss, you know, he got me a couple of books and said, okay, you're on point. Go figure this out and make us a website. So I did. And I learned it a little bit self-taught, of course. And what I did was I added features to the website. I added a little bit of search to it. I added some coding behind it so that you could, as a telemarketing firm, come to our website and kind of find people to call through a database search. Well, that was pretty popular with our clients. And I started getting a lot of emails and phone calls of, you know, where do we buy the software and that kind of thing. My boss told them, well, one of my guys wrote it, just talk to him. And he allowed me to sell that, just the search part of it, the coding part of it, to whoever, you know, as kind of a side gig, and which I did. And so for a few months or so, I was selling this. It was okay code. It wasn't great. It was just a little search program. But it turns out that I was making more money very quickly than I was at my job. And that little side gig of selling, you know, this little search code turned into what became a career for me. But how it started was when I moved back home from Atlanta. Now, what happened was when we moved to Jersey, I went to Atlanta. Kathy actually stayed in Jersey with my parents and my stepmom, while I went to Atlanta and kind of flew from their hub around the country. So it was kind of a rough time. We came back, and you know, within a few months or so, she turned out pregnant, of course, with Zach. And as part of that, I was making this transition from tech support to a little bit of coding. And with the money I was making, I said to her, you know what, Kat, I think there's something to this. And in fact, what I'm going to do is that really cool job that I have with the good pay and the benefits and the health insurance, I'm going to go ahead and quit that. And we're going to start a business. Now, luckily, she had a job at the time, but she was freaking out, of course, you can imagine. And, you know, a little bit of side eye here and there, but we did it. And the reason why I tell you that story is because that business took off. I actually did really, really well for a good dozen years or so. We ended up losing it in '08 with the big recession. But the point of the story is I went all in. Like it was like pushing in on a poker game, or just completely power pressing at craps. Like I'm like, I got this. I got this whole thing. And Kathy, my wife, is very grounded. And she was like, man, you're just, you know, that I like having the security. And she's like, well, I can provide the security. You know, even though she was pregnant with Zach, her job provided us with the health insurance that we needed to kind of give us a stable sort of like a kind of a net. But the financial netting was gone. Like she made money, I made money. And now I was taking this complete risk and bet on myself to some degree. And I think that I learned a couple things from that. One is if you bet on yourself to that degree, and I think the way to describe this is I put myself at immense risk. I put us at immense risk. And going into this thing without a net, you really have two options there, right? You can crush it or you can be crushed. It was literally success or failure. And there was no safety net. It was like, this business has to work. Now, I think the pressure of having to make it work is what made me make it work. Like I had this kind of fear behind me, and I kind of worked really hard. There was this adrenaline to it, this adrenaline of being all in and not really having a financial net, that I think made it work. And I think that, like I said, the pressure, I think, helped. Now, Kathy, along the way, of course, kept her job. She was making steady money. She was contributing to the 401k. She was building that up. She was providing health insurance during all those years. And you know, I always looked at that and said, well, I did it. I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the fire breather. I'm the risk taker, and devil be damned. And here I go. Right. Well, it turns out the lesson I learned was not the lesson of run around with no net as a means of success. The lesson that I learned was you need that safety net so that you can run around without a net. And in fact, the safety net that she provided and the little bit of a side eye that I got from her during this process, now I can look back and go, man, that's where it is, right? And that's the notion of kind of the way I bet the way I do. It's a hybrid system, right? I like having that little bit of safety net while I'm going for it. And I think that when I look at the way I play craps, and you notice from my YouTube channel, my videos, I'm a don't player, but I'm more of a hybrid player. I like that little bit of gunslinger, let's go all in mentality, but I do like having a little bit of a cushion there. And that's why I preach about careful betting. I preach about hedging a little bit, or hedging for a time. You'll notice that I'm the person that says hedge your bets, but as soon as your hedge is no longer needed, trim it, get rid of it. Because I feel like, when you're all in, you're all in. But Kathy taught me a big lesson there. She taught me about security and safety, and having that hedge against the aggressiveness. And I think between us, we hit gold for a lot of years and didn't realize how. We were kind of at odds on, should you be all in? Should we be taking this risk? And how much of a hedge should we have? And while it was a bone of contention for a short period of time, I think now looking back on it years later, what a big lesson. I think that that's really, if I equate that to how I play at the tables and how I teach the game of craps, that's the biggest lesson. I mean, it's all about being all in. It's all about giving yourself no net and this fearlessness attitude and kind of a success or fail. But having that stability with you is important. And as you walk through your strategies and practice at the table, but more importantly, as you walk through life, I think there's an element of giving yourself enough fear and risk to force you to work through it and make it happen, coupled with just enough of that net that you're hedged. And it gives you the confidence to sort of step in and move forward. And so that's it. That's my story. I thought that was kind of a cool thing, because it does tie in, a little bit of life, but it also ties in the way that I play, and it gives maybe some context into the reasons why I play that I play. So that wraps it for this episode of Fireside Craps. I thank you again for listening. I thank you for tuning in, subscribing to our YouTube channel at Pro Craps, for subscribing to this Fireside Craps podcast. And we'll see you in the next one. In the meantime, if you've got any thoughts, comments, suggestions, ideas, head off to the website. It's firesidecraps.com. You can leave us a voicemail there. You can email me at john@procraps.net. You can visit us at the YouTube channel and drop us a comment on any video that you like, or in the community tab section as well. Thanks again for being part of this show, and I will see you on the next episode. God bless.